So I've got a couple of beautiful crisp cucumbers ready for picking, but I don't have a use for them right now, so I'm going to turn them into bright, tangy, lightly spiced pickles. Just the thing to add some freshness and cut through the richness of a burger. But food preservation isn't the only reason to make your own pickles at home. In this video, I'm going to illustrate a few great reasons to make them instead of buying them, especially if you're not normally a big fan of pickles. Let's get snacking. Pickling is both a really effective way to preserve produce and also a great way to get a really good tasting end product. Today I'm going over the basics of pickles that can be stored in the fridge for several months. The process and ingredients can be applied to pretty much any hard vegetable, but today I'm focusing on cucumbers. While pickles are good for preserving food, they tend to work best with fresh vegetables. So if your vegetables are already starting to look a bit sad, consider putting them in a sauce or a chutney instead. Right here I've got two perfectly fresh cucumbers, but I don't have a use for them right now, so there's a risk of them going to waste. That's the perfect time for pickling. If I pick these now, they're probably going to sit in the fridge for maybe a week or so and then go bad. If I pickle them, they'll last in the fridge for several months. So reason one for making pickles at home: to preserve vegetables when they're at their best so that they're ready when you need them. The basis of any good pickling mixture is vinegar diluted with a bit of water. You can use any vinegar you want. Different vinegars will carry different flavors. Personally, I like to keep things simple, so I'm just using regular cheap white vinegar. Straight vinegar alone is probably going to be a little bit too bitey, so you want equal parts water to vinegar. If you find pickles are a little bit too acidic for your tastes, you can dial the vinegar back a bit. On the other hand, if you want them to have a real vinegary punch, you can dial the vinegar up a bit. So that's part of the second good reason to make pickles at home: customization. You can make them to suit your tastes. The acidity from the vinegar is the main reason that these keep for as long as they do, so if you dial back the vinegar too much, they may not last quite as long. Whenever you're pickling or canning anything at home, make sure you check for signs of spoilage before you eat it. You also might want to add a bit of salt to bring out the flavors, and a bit of sugar to add some sweetness and offset some of the acidity of the vinegar. I think a good starting point for a pickle brine is a cup of vinegar, a cup of water, a teaspoon of salt, and a teaspoon of sugar. And you can adjust it from there based on your tastes and your dietary requirements. I'm only pickling 2 small cucumbers today, so I've got some nice small jars and I'm going to make each jar of pickles a different flavour. So for my base, I'm using half a cup of white vinegar and half a cup of water. To that, I'm adding about a teaspoon of sugar to bring out a little bit of sweetness, and I'm not going to add any salt because I don't think it needs it, and I get more than enough salt from other foods. The next step is to add some aromatics. You can use pretty much whatever aromatic spices or vegetables you like here, from garlic or onion, spices, herbs, pretty much anything goes. If you think it's a good flavor combo, chuck it in. For this one, I'm going some peppercorns, some garlic, some mustard seeds, a little bit of turmeric for a bit of earthiness and some colour, and a small amount of dill. I personally don't like a strong flavoured dill pickle, but I do like a little bit of background flavour. I'm also going to throw in a bay leaf, because, well, why not? So we simply add all of the aromatic ingredients into our vinegar mix. I like to bruise the bay leaf a little bit beforehand. This helps to get the most flavour out of it in the shortest amount of time. I'm not putting in the garlic now because I don't want that flavour to cook out. I want some of that raw pungency in the final product, so I'll add that to the jar with the cucumbers. Place all of that onto the stove over a low to medium heat and bring it to a gentle boil. And I'm just letting that boil for a minute or so just to get those flavors infusing into the mix. If you want your pickles to be ready sooner, you can pour this liquid straight into the jars while it's still really hot. That'll help to get the pickle flavor into the vegetables a lot sooner. I tend to find that because this partially cooks the vegetables, you lose a little bit of crispness. So I'm just putting this aside for a little bit to cool. While that's cooling, I'll work on my next batch. Again, half a cup of vinegar, half a cup of water, and a teaspoon of sugar. And this time around, I'm going a generous amount of black peppercorns, some black mustard seeds this time. Black mustard tends to be a little bit more pungent than yellow, a bigger garlic clove, and a really hot chili. I want this batch to be nice and spicy. and another bay leaf just because. One of the perks of having a bay tree in your backyard is that you have a lot of bay on hand. And again, I'm not adding the garlic now, I'm going to save that and put it in the jar with the cucumbers. And again, we're just bringing this to a gentle boil, letting it go for a minute or so, and then putting it aside to cool. For the garlic, I'm just giving that a rough slice. We don't need to be too precise. It's going to be sitting in the vinegar with the cucumbers for quite some time, so there'll be plenty of time to extract the flavour. It doesn't matter if the slices are a bit chunky. The same goes for the chili. The pickle juice will do a great job of extracting all that heat. No need to slice it too finely. A rough chop should do fine. And then to slice the cucumbers. And again, another way in which you can customize your pickles. If, for example, you were planning to make a Chicago-style hot dog, you might want to slice these long ways into spears. If you're planning on using your pickles on sandwiches, perhaps some fairly fine slices. If you really like pickles and are planning on just eating them as a snack, you might want to leave them whole so you can have that nice crunch as you bite into a whole pickle. My main use for pickles is on burgers, so I'm slicing them into fairly thick coins. I like a nice chunky pickle on a burger, so that's what I'm going for today. Everything's now ready to go into the jars. I've just got a couple of jars that I'm reusing. They're washed and are nice and clean. They don't need to be sterilized for this. We're just making refrigerator pickles, which means we're going to be storing them in the fridge. If you want pickles that are shelf stable, you can put them through a canning process, but that's a fair bit of work and I find these last more than long enough in the fridge as it is. I like to put some of the smaller ingredients at the bottom and stack the vegetables on top, so that the vegetables you're putting on top sort of hold them down and stop them from floating around too much in the jar. Then on top of that, we're stacking our pickles. I've only got a small amount of pickles and these jars have plenty of room, so I'm not being too fussy about space and just jamming them in. And once they're ready, we're going to gently pour in our cooled pickling liquid. I've intentionally made slightly more liquid than I need. If you end up with less than you need, then it can be a bit fiddly mixing together the small amount needed to top it up, so it's much easier just to make slightly more than you think that you need. Once the jars are full, make sure you do get all of those aromatics in there. They will continue to flavour the pickles over time. Then simply screw on the lids and put them in the fridge. Leave them for at least a couple of days before opening. This will give the flavour enough time to penetrate the vegetables. The general advice seems to be that these will last in the fridge for about 2 months. Although to be honest, I've kept some in the fridge for significantly longer than that and they've been absolutely fine. Again, as I mentioned earlier, whenever you're pickling or canning anything yourself, do make sure you check it for signs of spoilage before you eat it, just to be on the safe side. If you're finding any of these tips helpful, please hit the like button. This helps me to know that I'm helping you. And that's it. How easy was that? Steep some aromatics in a pickling liquid, throw that in a jar with some vegetables, and hey presto, you've got super tasty, super quick fridge pickles. This works really well for onions, carrots, fennel, basically any firm vegetable will pickle up nicely and make a really great addition to salads, sandwiches and burgers, or even just for snacking. And if you'd like to join me on other snacking adventures, please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out. That's all for now. Happy snacking!